The peloton has crossed the finish line in Rome after receiving blessings from Pope Leo XIV, and Simon Yates has won the 2025 Giro d'Italia with a near 4-minute margin. Not something we predicted at any point in the last few weeks. He's joined on the podium by Isaac Del Toro and Richard Carapaz, who will probably never again be the best of friends after what happened on these slopes of the Colle delle Finestre. Also on the podium in Rome were Mats Pedersen as the winner of the Maglia Ciclamino, Lorenzo Fortunato as the winner of the Maglia Azzurra, and again, Isaac Del Toro as the Maglia Bianca. There's a lot to talk about, and don't worry, I won't be doing that by myself. I'm Bram, and I'm joined by my co-hosts Ethan and Joe, as well as the extra voice of professional cyclist Cyrus Monk. Welcome back to the Domestique Cycling Podcast. Gentlemen, the first Grand Tour of the 2025 season is over, and I think it's fair to say that it's one that will be talked about for a long time. Stage 20 obviously takes the crown, but there is so much more. Ethan, what's been your favorite moment?
Well, everyone's going to say stage 20, aren't they? Let's be honest there. But I probably have to say Wout's victory in Siena for me, because of just all of the stories surrounding him, people always writing him off and things like that in the press, as they always do. And then he comes back like that in Siena, beating Del Toro like that. It was something special for me, really, and the scenes after it as well.
What about you, Joe?
For me, I love seeing Del Toro bounce back on stage 17. I think the spirit that he showed 21 years old, very easily you could crack completely after losing the amount of time that he did to Carapaz on stage 16. So to see him come back, and I thought it was super impressive that the way he attacked, not on the climb, but he attacked on the climb, but he actually got the gap on the technical descent in the finale.
What about you?
That just showed how talented he really is.
Yeah, I was going to say the same one as Joe's there, but I guess I can't copy, so I'll go the obvious one and just go with stage 20. But it was just a Giro of comebacks, really. The Del Toro comeback after it looked like he was gone and then winning the next stage, but then Yates coming back 7 years later on a climb that I'm sure has just haunted him since then, to then be able to come back and I guess do what happened to him, and then even better, I guess, because he rode away from absolutely everyone there, and to take that win, and a guy that you never see any emotion from him ever, to see how broken he was immediately after, it shows how much it meant to him.
Yeah, that's true. The downside of this format, where I both ask you all for your favorite moment, now leads me to the difficult moment of picking another one, and I was honestly I've had all three of those listed, and now I don't have any. But I'm just going to join in on Siena, because that, maybe as a Belgian, I'm showing my patriotism. That is just a very special moment to see Wout van Aert come back. But also a little bit of an introduction of Isaac Del Toro and what he would do for the rest of his Giro. So it was kind of a really defining moment. Cyrus, I just realized I haven't given you a proper intro beyond being a professional cyclist. Tell the listeners maybe a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I have been riding at different levels for a long time, but for the last 9 years, basically, riding's been my main thing. The last 2 years, I was on Q36.5 Pro Cycling, which was a team that was in the Giro this year. Then this year, now I'm racing mostly in Asia, on the Asia Tour with a Chinese team. That's a whole nother podcast in itself, getting into the China level. But someone that's been around for a while, never quite having the talent to get results at the top level, but trying as hard as I can to race at that level. And lucky enough, I guess, to still be able to live the life of a pro, just earning enough to get by rather than earning enough to live in Monaco, just down the road from where I am now. So it's a bit of a difference, the lifestyle of someone at my level compared to these top guys that have just got these results we've been talking about. But fortunately, I get to know most of these guys through being at that level, racing on teams with them, racing against them a lot. So it's pretty cool to, I guess, for someone that grew up as a cycling fan to then become part of it enough that I can be a fan from in the race, not just from sitting at home watching on the couch as well, which I was doing the last 3 weeks.
Exactly. Like you said, last year you raced for Q36.5. How would you rate their Giro d'Italia?
I think they'd be pretty disappointed. I think it's a tricky one because the expectation from these wildcard teams, which they were, and they were the last ones to get the call up, is changing a little from what it used to be. I think it used to be just you get in the break every day, get a lot of TV time for the sponsors. That's the main goal. If you do that and maybe get a podium on a stage here or there, then that's a successful tour. Now, because the points battle, just sponsors, I guess, wanting return on their investment to the point where it's not just TV time, it's results as well. Their goals and objectives from speaking to the guys in the team were really different to what you would see in the past. So they came in with Pidcock. Instead of going, okay, let's let him lose some time and go stage hunting, they really wanted him to run a good GC placing for the points, essentially. Even from a branding and sponsorship perspective, it's probably better for him to cross the line with his hands in the air on one or two stages. But if he could run top 10 on GC and possibly do that, which would have been their goal at the start of the tour, I'm sure, then it's better for them. And then also, even if you look at a day like today, the final stage with Matteo Moschetti, he did finish third, which I'm sure they have to be happy with that, third behind two really good sprinters. But at the same time, they're sacrificing their chance to go in breakaways to get that TV time to ride for someone like him in the sprint days. So if it works out and Pidcock comes, say, fifth on GC with a stage win and Moschetti wins a stage, then all of a sudden they're geniuses and they're far better for not going in the breaks. But as it happened, they didn't actually get that much from the tour, and I'm sure they'd look back and think, okay, maybe we could have put a few more riders in breakaways and raced a bit more aggressively to at least get involved in the race, I guess, rather than just sitting in the peloton for most of the tour, which it looks like they did in the end.
Yeah. Do you agree with that assessment, Joe?
Yeah, because we were saying before the start of the race, if we saw a fun Tom Pidcock, that'd be great, because that's what he does. He races on instinct and he's a born entertainer. But when you race a GC battle like he does, and for him, he's not done too many of them, it's sort of a lot of just suffering, hanging on, not really getting the best out of himself in terms of entertainment. And I think for him personally, he would have preferred beat down to sort of go stage hunting and sort of backdoor his way into maybe a top 10 or even a top 15 where he finished. I think if he sort of sacrificed a little bit of time at the beginning with the big gaps in the final week in the mountains, he probably would have ended up in the same spot anyway, if that makes sense.
A top 10 spot for GC was realistic from the start, Ethan?
No, I don't think not a chance, really, in my opinion there. But there's also a point towards the end of the second week, going to the third week, where him and his sports directors have to come to a conclusion of going for stages, and really, it had to be that way because the stages really suited him, didn't they? Like a prime Pidcock would be all over those stages, but do you want to get like 11th, 12th in GC or go for a stage win? You'd go for a stage win.
Yeah,
I think the other
I would
thing,
assume so.
Sorry, just to go there is also, you just touched on it, he probably wasn't a prime Pidcock for this.
Yeah, he did
3
mention
weeks.
his shape, yeah.
Yeah, if we look at he's absolutely flying start of February. Saudi tour, he came out and was saying he's doing the best numbers he's ever done in his life. Then gone through, had a really successful classics in the Ardennes as well. And then, yeah, he's probably just getting to the point now where it's really hard then to be flying here. And then even if you look at the stage, Del Toro won in the final week, where it was a Q36.5 rider bringing it back together so that there was a chance for Pidcock to go for that. If he's flying and at 100%, he's winning that stage almost every day of the week because that kind of climb is perfect for him. He's not going to get dropped by Del Toro and Carapaz on that, and then perfect little descent into the finish line and the sprint there. So I think it's easy to poke holes in the tactics sometimes when the legs simply weren't there as well. So that makes it really hard. Doesn't matter how tactically you play it if you don't quite have the form.
It doesn't help as well that he has a lot of extra applied pressure on him as well because he's basically the sole rider of the team, isn't he, as well? And then all the eyes are on him, especially because of his Ineos exit as well. So
yeah, and they've built that whole team around him for the Giro, and that was planned out a long time out. Obviously with Moschetti for the sprints as well, but if you look, they essentially had one or two lead-out guys, and the rest were there to support Pidcock. So it is tricky, but at the same time, that's what he joined the team for, was to be that guy. And every race he goes to, he'll have that pressure. And I think if you gave him the choice, he'd probably prefer that over the opposite, which is not being the the big guy that gets to choose his own program and do all the things. So yeah, there's an upside and downside to both sides of it, but I'm pretty sure he'd like where he is at the moment. It just means that, yeah, if he's not flying, the whole team ends up not getting the result.
And I think we also have to consider sort of what the aspirations are for the Vuelta, because it might be another case where he wants to go for, or the team want him to go for GC there, and this Giro is sort of another learning experience for him, racing the first Grand Tour with a new team, sort of, because he seems still quite positive in his interviews in the third week, which if he was very disappointed, you'd be able to sort of tell in these sort of interviews, but
he's just,
we've got to consider that as well.
That would have been part of it, I'm sure, in the team chats as well. Like they would have had talks on each of the rest days and after each stage on, do we just sacrifice 20 minutes here and just go for stages? And part of it would have been looking to the Vuelta. Like, I'm sure he's going to have a proper break now with some time off. Maybe he'll get sucked into going and doing some mountain bike races. I don't know. But yeah, I'm sure he'll rest up now, have a good second part of the season. And if the Vuelta is a target with a much better preparation, like a more standard build into it than just trying to hold on to form, then there's a good chance they'll want him to try and do that top 10 or even top 5 on GC there, especially if the stages suit him a bit better with some steeper, shorter climbs rather than those crazy long ones at the Giro. So then it's maybe just, okay, this is our trial run. You need to actually ride hard for the 3 weeks and see how far it gets you.
I do think with they're walking away from this Giro with 359 UCI points, which is not a small haul. It's definitely not the smallest from all the teams. So I do think being a wildcard team, it should be a Giro that they're satisfied with, although with no highlights, let's put it that way. It's just consistency, I guess.
Yeah, and it's a tough balance to organise that. Like when you look at that, like, yeah, it would be a really tough question to ask the directors of the team and even the sponsors. Would you prefer us to get this many points so that we're a little bit further up the tally, or one stage win and nothing else the rest of the tour? It'd be a tough question to ask.
Yeah, looking forward to being able to do that at some point. I'd like to present you all with a few statements for you to debate. Is that okay with you?
Yeah, sure.
I was really hoping you'd say that, because otherwise my entire prep for this podcast would be out of the window. So let's start off with the first statement. The strongest rider won the Tour, or was it the smartest rider? Ethan, maybe you kick it off.
So it's got to be the smartest, hasn't it? Yeah, and also like the most mentally strong. He had the balls to just go all in, no matter what, compared to Carapaz and Del Toro, who were too busy squabbling over each other, let's say that way. Just over the smartness as well from Visma Lease bike as well, having Wout up there ready in the breakaway, just to drag Yates over the line. It's the smartest rider won, not the strongest. I think Carapaz was just closer than Del Toro in terms of his shape.
Joe, what do you think?
Yeah, I sort of agree with Ethan, because I think to begin with, Carapaz was riding very smart, making them sort of attacks that we always see Carapaz does. It's almost like assassin-like. When he goes, he usually wins. But I think as the race went on, he sort of got embroiled in this actual personal battle with Del Toro, and it allowed Yates just to ride his race, be very steady, consistent, very good throughout the whole race, but no one was talking about him. Whereas every time Carapaz or Del Toro attacked, the other one was straight on the wheel, and it was all about them two. And I think, Yates absolutely just smashed it basically on stage 20, and the way the race fell, it played into his hands really.
I'd agree with the same.
Agree with Ethan.
The same points, and everyone said it at the start. If you look at any interview, it was all about the third week, and it is so hard, I think, for people to be patient enough. Del Toro obviously sort of fell into the pink jersey in that chaotic stage 9, and he didn't fall into it. He was one of the best on the day, but it's then so hard for him to sort of just think, okay, I need to relax and wait for the third week, and then at the same time, like you said, we're still in the race at that point. So I think Yates is probably just someone that had that experience firsthand from having it happen the other way around, to just know, okay, actually, you need to really be patient. Everyone says it's so hard when the race is happening every day, all out, to be thinking, okay, there's still so much more to come. And I think also, the team, Visma, they've got that experience just competing in Grand Tours for so many years, putting guys on the top step of the podium. They know how to pace out that 3 weeks as well. even if you look at their nutrition throughout the tour and their planning, their recovery would have all been centered around being really good for those last few mountain stages. And that was really the only time Yates looked considerably better than the other guys. And I think a lot of that comes down to just being prepared to plan everything around being good for those days.
Yeah, exactly. I think when it comes to the time trials, it was very obvious that Yates was in good form, because when he's in good form, he's a really great time trialist. But then in stage 19, he does lose a little bit of time on those explosive attacks. And at that point, I think with a lot of people, it was okay. It's obviously going to be between Carapaz and Del Toro. But just keeping his powder dry for 19 stages in a row kind of paid off. And I do think you're right in saying that that's just the experience of having been on the opposite end of that in 2018. That is just something you learn. I think it's something that Del Toro will take away from this Giro as well. But yeah, I think the smartest won this race.
I mean, he was not even the strongest, really. He could have. I think UAE will regret it not dropping him or hammering it at the pace when he was distanced. He had the real opportunity to distance Simon Yates, but they didn't. So, which was all race really. I think the DSs of UAE have to look at themselves in the mirror and question themselves. Let's put it that way.
I mean, I don't really question them because they're riding with a 21-year-old that obviously hasn't proven himself in a Grand Tour yet for 3 weeks, and taking the risk to go all out with him, and potentially now he's finished second in the GC. It could have been a lot worse if they had ridden him into destruction and he
but do you race to
dropped
win
down
or
to
do you race
6
to
or
finish
7.
second? That's the thing.
With a rider as 21 years old, racing to become second isn't a disgrace.
Obviously, yeah, but still, you want to race to win.
Yeah, obviously they're the best team in the world, or they won that title last year. So I do think it's a little bit of a shame that they didn't race to win. But it also shows a little bit of balls to say, you know what, I'm okay with losing this race if Carapaz doesn't want to close this down. So be it. Then yeah. I'll just lose this race, but he won't win it either. I think that shows. I don't know if it's character, temperament, or race smarts. Probably not race smarts, but it at least shows that he's willing to put it on the line and say, you know what, it doesn't have to be me. As long as it's not you either, I'm good with that.
I think some of that also is because he's so young and so good, he's going to be thinking he'll have 10, 20 more chances to win Grand Tours in the future. And I think, I hope he does, and I'm sure he actually will have. But that's something that possibly others that have been close 5 or 6 times before and not got there in that situation would be prepared to just go, okay, I'm just risking everything to try and win this one. I think the fact that he just goes, okay, in his team, he might not get that many opportunities, granted, but he's going to have a pretty long career ahead of him. And I'm sure it won't be too long before he's in that situation again. So for him right now, especially the career he's had as a 21-year-old, he's probably thinking, I'm going to have a chance to do this pretty soon again anyway. If it doesn't work out this time, it doesn't matter too much.
Actually, what does the Giro by Del Toro have as an impact on the career of someone like João Almeida? Would João Almeida still get a chance as a GC leader in a Grand Tour now? Or
I would hate to see the meetings in that team in the training camps in November, because the directors have either got to piss everyone off, all the riders off, or lie. There's no way about it. And team directors probably have a good reputation for doing both of those things anyway. But they've got to sit down at the planning and say, okay, either say to someone like Del Toro or Almeida next year, either they've got to say, yeah, you're probably not going to get a chance to run it the GC because these riders are doing it, or just lie to them and say, yeah, it probably will be you, and then later on let them down, or have the situation where you show up at the start line and no one really knows exactly who is the preferred rider. But it would be a really tricky situation to be in at that team in November and December at those planning sessions.
You may as well just spin the wheel now and just pick someone at random, like at that point.
I mean, if Pogacar is on the line, then it'll always be Pogacar, I assume, or at least for the coming few years.
But with Almeida, though, he seems content just being Pogacar's key domestique, doesn't he? Really, at the minute.
But for the rest of his career,
The only one who seems like he will actually go is Ayuso soon. But
How long?
yeah, the Ayuso might have a problem. Although I do think that he's going to get more chances as a GC leader. But yeah, I think Del Toro just made everything even more difficult, and I think with Pablo Torres as well, as a young rider coming into UAE, in 2 years' time they'll have this problem again, most likely. But that's just how you build that team. Maybe we go on to the next statement of these stages, like stage 21, these parade stages. They shouldn't happen.
they should.
Well, I reckon we let Cyrus answer it
As
first.
someone
Being a professional,
that
what do you
isn't
think?
a sprinter and isn't a GC rider, I hate the idea of it because I'm someone that just needs to win from a breakaway, basically. So when I see something like that today, where the FDG rider, one of you guys will have to remind me which one it was, attacks, attacks and then gets yelled at for attacking. It's a tricky one even there because obviously they don't have a sprinter there. Again, like even if you look at, they're a team that came there and didn't achieve anything from the Giro. So of course they want to try and make something of a stage that everyone's watching, at least in Italy. And then they're told not to because of this unwritten rule. So it's hard on them. And then at the same time, I sort of understand that, it is a tradition. You should get to the final circuit and cross before or this kind of thing. One thing I'd say is if you're going to have it set up where you get to the final circuit, the leading team crosses the line, don't make the parade 100k long before you get there or whatever it was today. Just do a 10k stupid parade thing where you can drink your champagne, whatever it is, and then start the racing. Even if the stage is 60k, no one cares because no one wants to watch the 100k roll around before. So, you can cut that bit. And then, I don't know, I don't mind giving the sprinters a chance because the beauty of that is all of those sprinters that were there had to suffer through all the mountains. So I don't mind having a sprint stage to finish and ensuring it's a sprint stage rather than one of these lumpy ones with a few bergs in the last 30k where the sprinters might not get there. It gives the sprinters a reason to stay in the tour, and we saw a lot of finishes at this Giro, actually. I think it was 160 something, so more than you would see at a lot of Grand Tours because I think that's their chance. But at the same time, when if you're going to have this parade, it doesn't need to be as long, I would say.
Joe, maybe you want to go now.
Yeah, well, I mean, we'll see at the Tour de France because obviously we've got the Montmartre to climb this year, so that'll be interesting, and that could actually turn into a GC battle on the final day. So that'll be interesting to see the other perspective, and then we'll have a better idea of what's the more preferable scenario for a final day. Yeah, but again, it all depends on the actual GC situation on the final day. Say Pogacar's 5-6 minutes clear at the end, it's not going to matter one bit. But if the race is still in the balance, say a minute or so,
they will,
that could be really interesting.
Make an agreement beforehand that they just neutralise the race ahead of the circuit as well.
Well, I guess it depends on the race situation again. Will whoever's in second place, they say
in my
they're
opinion,
within a minute,
they shouldn't race.
will they be
should
willing
race
to
to
do
win
that?
it.
Or they... Yeah, well, that's what I mean. If we look at one of the greatest ever editions of a Grand Tour, 1989, the Tour, that came down to literally the final metres of the race between Le Mans and Fignon. So
Exactly.
I think the game's the
You
game.
didn't
From a rider perspective, I guess I can add a little bit here. What actually goes on is it's just like basically, you have a bit of majority rules, but the big dogs of the peloton will just bully everyone else into doing what they want to do. So it's the same if it's the weather side of things, like you get really bad weather, whether it's wind or rain. It tends to be the smaller teams want to do something because it's their best chance, like a bit of chaos in there, higher variance because anything can go on. Same if you're racing on something like Montmartre with a lot that can happen. Breaks can win. There can be crashes. There can be splits because of whatever. The smaller teams and the riders that haven't achieved as much in their career to date are going to want that because it's a chance to win on the Champs-Élysées. The big riders don't want any risk whatsoever, especially the guys that have already achieved a lot, whether it's in the race or in their career to date. So it's pretty easy for them to just say to everyone else, look, they're basically just going to bully all the smaller teams, all the smaller riders into doing what they want. So it's a really tricky one because you'd have often a lot of riders in the peloton will want to race, but they're not the ones that you hear from. You're just hearing from the big dogs, the GC guys that are already there and don't want to have any danger on the final stage.
Ethan, anything to add?
Yeah, I think it, like Cyrus said there, like the big dogs of the peloton, they're going to be controlling it, aren't they? It's going to be up to them. It's a bit like a dictatorship, isn't it, really, in a sense, in the peloton. And no democracy around there, but I think they should really stay because it's tradition, isn't it? I'm going to be a traditionalist.
Oh, look at you go. Maybe the third statement, and I've actually got a fourth one that I thought of. There should be more regular sprint stages in a Grand Tour than we've seen in this Giro. Ethan is already shaking his head. I think he wants to go first.
Please no. I mean, the last 5 kilometers is the most interesting, obviously, of the sprint stage. The rest of it is just a snooze fest. Like, you do the live blogs, and then it does prove to be some difficult work sometimes when it's sprint stages, and you don't want to overload them. But we're now seeing nowadays the sprint stages keep finishing inside city centres, and I think maybe organisers will keep looking to include sprint stages more and more for city centres, but it then proves more dangerous, isn't it?
Yeah, as a rider,
Cyrus, go ahead.
As a rider, the riders would love it because it's just basically a recovery day for everyone except the sprint teams. Even the sprint teams, until the final hour of the race, it's a recovery day except for the 1 or 2 riders riding on the front. I think the thing that's frustrating is every team seems to think they can win a sprint on these sprint days. So you'll get 1 rider in the break or 2 riders in the break, and then it's just a waste of a stage almost. And I don't know, I'm sure they have to believe that they can win a sprint, so that's why they're not sending more riders in the break. But that's the frustrating thing, and I don't know. The sport is purely built on sponsor dollars and viewership. So if you're going to have boring stages like this, where it's 1 or 2 riders in the break and only 5 minutes worth watching, as opposed to something with a bit more excitement, then I think going forward, you really can't have any more sprint stages like that, where it's just 1 or 2 riders in the break for 5 hours.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I think the sprint stages that, like the 200 kilometer flat stages, they're obviously not super fun to watch, but I do think they kind of, like you mentioned safety there, Ethan, from an outsider perspective, I would say that they're often more safer because they seem to be less nervous for the GC guys. Mm-hmm. So they can have a little bit of an easier day and keep it safe, as opposed to also always being on the front and staying out of trouble. So I think
the thing is, though, like the Giro finishes this in sprint stages, the circuits have been, I don't know what they were doing with the designing of the circuits with some of them. There was the stage 4 in Delle, wasn't there? Which was, I don't know how the UCI approves that. Like it's a good point though. Like I don't know how it gets approved, because the risk that riders will take to go for the win is, and then you get the GC riders who want to stay out of trouble for the 3 kilometer rule, and then you have like a narrowing under a bridge before that 3 kilometer rule. It's just.
Well, it's the case in Italy everywhere. If you watch Tirreno's always renowned for having terrible little finishing circuits, and doesn't get any better the lower levels you get. I'm sure if you speak to any rider that's done any 0.2 races in Italy, they'd tell you they're happy to still be alive. But I think it's just the nature of the roads there. As you said, if you're finishing in a city centre, they're tiny little roads. It's a little different to the the Belgium complaints, which are always for traffic furniture. It's not necessarily traffic furniture in Italy. It's just the fact that there's like 1,000-year-old buildings on both sides of the road that are made of stone that you just can't move. And so you've got this peloton that's having to squeeze through them. But yeah, it's a tough one. From the safety perspective, I think Bram made a good point, because there's just that maybe one key point or two key points in the last 10K, as opposed to a stage where something could happen for the last 100K and you've got all of these pinch points or fights to be in good position, and it just takes something to go wrong in one of those for there to be a big spill and big accident. But yeah, it's a tricky one, because there's in any sprint stage you can have it on a straight wide road, 3 lanes wide, and still have a massive pile up because everyone's fresh and it's so easy and it's not strung out. So it is unfortunately the nature of being sprinters. You have to be a little bit crazy, and there's going to be crashes in every sprint stage you have, I think.
Yeah, we did see a respectable sprint though, like a straight line sprint where Colle won, where you had all 7 riders like straight lined up next to each other, which was nice to see for once.
It's rare.
Yeah. So those like boulevard sprints are getting quite rare. I think Cavendish mentioned it a few times in his last years that like those types of stages, and especially the Tour de France, are getting a little bit more rare. And those are the ones that he always loved and always tended to win. But yeah, I have my last statement, and it's a bit of a fluff ball, to be honest. I've been having the trophy up on my second screen of the Giro, and it is the most beautiful trophy inside of cycling.
In sport?
In sport?
Yeah, I mean, it's either that or the Champions League trophy, let's be honest there.
Agreed.
Or the World Cup. But it looks just like, look at it really. It has an aura about it, doesn't it?
It definitely does. It's one way to describe it.
Yeah, that's the word, aura.
Well, and now it's going to go home with Simon Yates for 2025.
UK cycling is back, which is obviously great to see. We're seeing, especially in the Tour of Norway, Matthew Brennan, and we should mention him as well. 9 professional wins now in this year, which is the most of any rider currently in this year, which is crazy, isn't it?
Oh my God. And all that before he even turns 20.
He's scarily good.
That's scary, Cyrus, if he was racing that.
He's a serious rider.
Well, the scary thing is they're tough finishes there in Norway. Like, they just love building them up crazy steep bergs at the finish. We've already seen in the classics that he can get over hills, and even in Catalonia, I think it was, that he can obviously climb pretty well. But I think he's just going to be one of those guys that basically anything that's not a mountaintop finish, you can put him down as one of the favourites to win the race. It's just going to be interesting again how this team manages him and what opportunities he gets in a team with Van Aert in it. But it'd scare me if I had to race against him. It probably scares Van Aert more, to be honest, because he might suddenly not be the guy for the classic Van Aert finishes.
Yeah, I mean, he's 19, Van Aert is 31. I think he definitely has the time on his side, and this time will come, even if it's not next year, the year after. Like, Van Aert's going to fade out at some point. But yeah, I've seen him compared to Sagan already. Obviously,
he's
quite a fair
pretty
comparison.
much is, yeah. I would say that's fair. Especially we seen yesterday's stage as well. He was Jan Christen attacked. You'd expect a wonder kid. He's a wonder kid, Jan Christen, like punch. He just stuck straight on his wheel, like, huh?
It's absolutely insane, especially on that finish where I didn't consider him to be one of the favorites because I thought it'd be too tough. Like, it was proper steep, and he just sticks with it.
He would have won if he didn't. Well, he ran out of gears at the end and got pit by Van Giel. So
yeah, but I think you've also got to consider it's not just his raw talent. If you actually watch the races, he's like prowess in the peloton. He's always in the front of the race. Anytime there's some sort of tricky section or a big climb coming up, you always see him at the front. And even if his team aren't there, Brennan's still there on his own. And I think that, above anything, is more impressive because obviously you can just be naturally gifted, but to actually have that racing ability as well already at his age, it's scary.
that in terms of he just doesn't think about, should I be here? Am I supposed to be here? Do I belong with these guys at the front? He just goes and races. There's not much going through his head other than, these guys are attacking, I'll just follow them. And then at the end, I'll sprint past them. And I think, that probably saves him, because a lot of guys coming in when their first year or two, they're sort of trying to find their way in the peloton, and it's probably to your detriment if you're thinking too much during the race about what you're supposed to be doing. Is that the right move to follow? He just goes with it. Obviously, you see at some point, he's still young enough that he can blow up in something like Roubaix after doing it too many times, but it's not going to be long before, even in those biggest, longest races, he's still able to just keep going and going and getting across the line first. So it's going to be good to watch.
Yeah, you were mentioning that racecraft as well. I was just thinking about Roubaix the whole time, where at 19 years old, he finds himself in front groups of the favorites, where you would not expect to see a 19-year-old, but he just does it.
It's a dilemma there as well, though, really. I mean, he will probably go into the Tour squad in this form, no? And then you see some of the finishes in the first week of the Tour. He would probably win those stages currently in the form he's in, isn't he? So you have the Mur de Bretagne, you can... Van der Poel he's not going to be there, no? Most likely.
That's not been confirmed yet. He still might be, but...
I'd still say I don't think he would go all like in the shape, ready for it, so... And that punch... Crazy.
I don't think they will take him to the Tour this year.
Yeah, obviously not. I won't take him to the Tour this year, because it's going to create, again, expectations again around him. But next year, even a Vuelta won't be bad for him, really, this year.
Yeah, I mean, when you're talking about expectations around Brennan, those already exist, whether or not you take him to the Tour.
Yeah, sure.
But obviously, I don't think it would be a good idea to take a 19-year-old to a Grand Tour straight away. But although by then he'll be 20, regardless of that.
Playing Pro Cycling Manager then, isn't it, really? But
anything to add or final words about the 2025 Giro d'Italia? Cyrus,
I think we should all rate it out of 10.
Actually,
for me, it's hard with the recency bias, because I just and it's just after I finished watching yesterday, I was just thinking, I can't remember a tour this good. And then sort of read through and saw other people's ratings and comparisons and thought, okay, there's been a few other ones, like the Giro that Nibali won in the final week was a pretty crazy comeback as well that's been compared to. But it's right up there with one of the best Grand Tours I've ever seen in terms of, just the day-to-day stages, and some great stories in that. The Van Aert, the Verona, a lot of good stories in the stages themselves, and some exciting stages besides the GC battle. But to have a GC battle go to stage 20, we just haven't been lucky enough to have that at many Grand Tours recently. And also, I think just to not have a team dominate, when at the start of the tour we thought a team would dominate the whole thing. I think it's so nice to watch a Grand Tour where you don't have just one team dominating the whole thing, strangling the race. It was really just so open right until the end.
Joe, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I echo what Cyrus was saying. It was very refreshing to see the openness right until the end. It was nice to see a lot of the good guys in the sport get their moment, like the Chris Harpers, the Carlos Veronas, Nico Denz again, because those stories and those riders, they're not really highlighted as much as they deserve to be. And to get their moment in the spotlight, it's great to see. And I think Little Trek at the start of the race, it was a masterclass first 2 weeks from them, the way they rode, and even the way they bounced back when Ciccone crashed out.
Yeah,
so I think they're load of great stories to take away from this Giro.
It has to be probably, I was going to rate it 8 out of 10. You obviously had a Little Trek Masterclass, like Joe mentioned, and then a Hollywood ending, would you say? It's like something out, you couldn't like put that in the movie script and it wouldn't come up with it, would it? It's like the whole, it was almost scripted, wasn't it? Let's be honest there.
I mean, I think I saw it scripted by someone on X the day before. Wouldn't it be amazing if Simon Yates took to Jersey on the Colle delle Finestre after what happened in 2018, and that happens, and it's absolutely incredible. It is just one of those moments in the sports where it had to be that way.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that he also felt that, like, that will be my moment, and that's how I'm going to prove that I still got it, and yeah, absolutely magical moment
The whole
to have that
entertainment
happen there.
of the Giro has been. I thought it was like not really a boring moment, really. In all this, I watched all the kilometers of the stages, and not a single
You
one
watched
was.
every single kilometer, so that's
Yeah, I'm on a streak of Grand Tours since Giro last year of watching all the kilometers. But yeah, there was maybe one boring bit, really.
No, I agree with that. But yeah, it's been one of those Giros or one of those Grand Tours that just a lot of symbolism going on, a lot of wins happening in the right places. Wout van Aert winning in Siena in the Strade Bianche stage. Simon Yates taking the jersey where he did. Like it's a lot of meaningful stuff that makes the sport so great, and it just meant to be that way.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna wrap up today's Domestique Cycling Podcast. Thank you all for watching or listening. This week we will launch the Domestique platform, so keep an eye out for that. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say which day it's going to be, but in the coming week. And we will be back for the Dauphiné preview. See you then.
Ciao.
See ya.